Dayo, a struggling investigative journalist drowning in medical debt, accepts a reckless $15,000 dare at an exclusive Manhattan gala. Kiss the most feared man in the room for 3 seconds. What was supposed to be a desperate transaction turns into an inescapable obsession when Beom Seok, Korean mafia boss, refuses to let her walk away. As his hand slides into her hair and his arm locks around her waist like forged steel, while 200 witnesses watch in frozen horror, Dayo realizes she hasn't just kissed a dangerous man. She's walked straight into a trap set by a predator who's decided she belongs to him, and in his world, what he claims, he keeps. The story opens 72 hours before the kiss, in Dayo's cramped Brooklyn apartment, where eviction notices and medical bills for her mother's stage 3 cancer treatment cover every surface. Her brilliant investigative journalism goes unread, her voice unheard in a white-dominated media landscape. When a mysterious invitation to Manhattan's most exclusive gala arrives, she crashes the event hoping to find the story that will finally make her matter. Instead, she finds Beom Seok, violence wrapped in expensive tailoring, mandala tattoos marking him as mafia royalty, and a dare from bored socialites who never imagined she'd be reckless enough to accept. Though she's terrified of his world and the lethal power he radiates, Dayo takes the dare, unaware that 3 seconds of courage will force her to choose between the invisible safety of her old life and a man who sees her so completely that walking away might kill her faster than any bullet. Dayo Equieme stared at the eviction notice taped to her apartment door, the red lettering bleeding through the thin paper like a wound. 3 months overdue. Final warning. She didn't bother ripping it down anymore. What was the point? The landlord knew where to find her, and she knew exactly how much she didn't have. Inside the cramped Brooklyn studio, medical bills covered every surface like snow that never melted. Blue Cross denial letters, Memorial Sloan Kettering payment plans. Her mother's stage 3 diagnosis had arrived 6 months ago, and with it, a slow-motion financial execution that no amount of hustling could outrun. Dayo collapsed onto the futon that served as both bed and couch, her laptop balanced on her knees. The screen glowed with her latest investigative piece, 3 months of research exposing city council corruption, meticulous sourcing, the kind of journalism that used to matter. Her editor's email sat in her inbox like a tombstone. Great work, but we're going in a different direction. Maybe try something more accessible? Accessible. Code for, nobody wants to read what a broke black woman has to say about power. Nobody's listening, she whispered to the empty room. So why do I keep fighting? Her phone buzzed. Her mother's oncology nurse. Reminder, payment due before next treatment. $15,000 or we'll have to reschedule. Reschedule. Another word that meant something else entirely. Dayo's vision blurred. She was drowning, and no one was watching her go under. The cream-colored envelope appeared in her mailbox that evening like a hallucination. Heavy cardstock, gold embossing. The Manhattan Syndicate Foundation cordially invites you to an evening of philanthropy and connection. A gala. Tomorrow night. Black tie. She almost laughed. This had to be a mistake. Some algorithm error, a mailing list glitch. Women like her didn't get invited to places like this. But as she turned the invitation over, a thought crystallized. Maybe she didn't get invited. Maybe she could get in anyway. Her expired press credentials still had her photo. Her leather jacket could pass for designer if she walked with enough confidence. And if there was one thing Dayo Equieme knew how to do, it was walk into rooms that didn't want her. She needed a story, something big enough to matter. Maybe Manhattan's elite gathering in one place was exactly the break she'd been clawing for. The Plaza Hotel dripped with old money and new cruelty. Dayo stepped into the gilded ballroom and felt every eye slide over her leather jacket, her natural hair pulled into a sleek ponytail, the wrongness of her presence. Designer gowns whispered against marble. Champagne flutes caught the light like tiny weapons. She was invisible here too, just in a different way. Then she saw him. He stood near the far wall, surrounded by empty space that felt deliberate. Massive, not gym-built, but forged. A black suit that probably cost more than her rent stretched across shoulders designed for violence. Tattoos crawled up his neck in intricate mandalas, dark florals disappearing beneath his collar and wrapping his forearms in shadows. Violence in a tuxedo. Even from across the room, she felt the weight of him. Other guests gave him wide berth, their laughter dying when they got too close. His eyes swept the crowd with predatory focus, unreadable and absolute. "Don't even look at him," a woman whispered nearby, champagne trembling in her hand. But Dayo was already looking, already wondering what kind of man made a room full of Manhattan's elite afraid to breathe too loudly. Already walking towards the exact kind of danger she couldn't afford.
"Oh God, did she actually crash this?" The voice dripped with amusement, loud enough to carry. "Look at the jacket. How tragically Brooklyn." Dayo turned to find 3 women in designer gowns studying her like an anthropology exhibit. Their smiles were sharp enough to draw blood. "I think it's brave," another one said, the word twisted into mockery, coming here dressed like she's about to steal a motorcycle. Speaking of brave, the blonde one gestured across the ballroom with her champagne flute. "See that man? Beom Seok, Korean mafia. They say he once broke someone's spine for looking at him wrong. $15,000, the redhead announced suddenly, eyes glittering with malicious delight. "If you kiss him. 3 seconds. We'll transfer it right now." They were laughing, certain she'd crumble. Certain girls like her knew their place. Dayo pulled out her phone with steady hands and typed his name into Google. The results loaded like a rap sheet written in whispers. Territorial disputes, suspected involvement, ruthless, untouchable. One article called him the most dangerous man in New York's underworld. Another simply said, "Don't." She looked up, watched him across the room. The way other predators, men in expensive suits with their own shadows, gave him space. The way his security detail tracked every movement in the ballroom except his. He didn't need watching. He was the threat. Her mother's text burned in her pocket. "Treatment Friday. We need the deposit." 3 seconds. She could survive anything for 3 seconds. She'd survived 26 years of being invisible. She'd survive this. Dayo crossed the ballroom like she was walking through water. Every step felt weighted, endless. His security team tensed, hands moving towards concealed weapons. The crowd began to notice, conversations dying like dominoes falling. He turned before she reached him. Those eyes, dark, infinite, absolutely certain, locked onto hers with the focus of a predator selecting prey. "I need to kiss you," Dayo said, her voice steadier than her heartbeat. 3 seconds. It's for money. Something flickered in his expression, not amusement. Something darker, more interested. She didn't wait for permission. Her hand pressed flat against his chest. Solid, unyielding, wrapped in expensive fabric over muscle built for breaking things. His mandala tattoo pulsed beneath her palm with each thundering heartbeat. The kiss was supposed to be simple, clinical, 3 seconds and $15,000. But the moment her lips touched his hand slid into her ponytail with devastating precision. His other arm locked around her waist like forged steel, pulling her against him with a possession that stopped her breath. The ballroom went silent. 200 people frozen in collective shock. 3 seconds stretched into infinity. His mouth claimed hers with an authority that had nothing to do with the dare and everything to do with ownership. Heat flooded through her, terrifying and undeniable. She tried to pull back. His grip tightened. "We're not finished," he murmured against her lips, his voice dark velvet wrapped around a blade. When he finally released her, Dayo stumbled backward. Her phone buzzed, the transfer confirmation. $15,000, her mother's treatment, her survival. She turned to leave on shaking legs. "Stay." The single word stopped her like a hand around her throat. "I got what I came for," she said without turning around. "No." His voice carried across the silent ballroom with absolute certainty. "You didn't." Dayo made it exactly 3 blocks before the black Mercedes pulled up beside her, smooth and inevitable as a shark cutting through water. The driver's window descended. A young man with an earpiece and dead eyes looked at her with professional detachment. "Mr. Seok requests your presence." "Tell Mr. Seok I'm not interested." "That wasn't a question, miss." He stepped out, opening the rear door. "Please." The please didn't make it a request. Neither did the way his jacket fell open, just enough to show the shoulder holster beneath. Dayo thought about running, thought about screaming. Did neither. She'd walked into this with her eyes open. Whatever came next, she'd chosen it the moment she crossed that ballroom. She got in the car. The restaurant was the kind that didn't have prices on the menu or its name on the door. Private room, candlelight, armed men stationed at every exit, trying to look like waitstaff and failing spectacularly. Beom Seok sat alone at a table set for 2, still wearing that devastating suit, mandala tattoos stark against his skin in the low light. He didn't stand when she entered. Didn't need to. His presence filled the room like smoke. "Why?" His voice was quieter than she expected. Darker. $15,000 isn't worth dying for. "My mother has stage 3 cancer." The words came out steady, honest. "The treatment costs more than I'll make in a year. So yes, it was worth it." Something shifted in his expression. Not softening. Men like him didn't soften. But a flicker of recognition. Understanding. Family, he said. I understand family. Good. Then you'll understand why I need to leave. I got the money. We're done. You should be afraid of me. He leaned forward slightly, and the candlelight caught the sharp angles of his face. Everyone in that ballroom was afraid. Except you. I am afraid. Dayo met his eyes. I did it anyway. His lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it reached his eyes. I don't let go of things I want. And I want you. The words should have terrified her. Instead, heat coiled low in her stomach. Dangerous and electric. One drink, he said, standing finally. Then I'll take you home. I promise. One drink became 3. 3 became conversation that felt like confession. He ordered in Korean, translated each dish with patient intensity. Asked about her journalism, her stories, the corruption she tried to expose. Come upstairs, he said as the restaurant prepared to close, just to see the view. His penthouse occupied the top floor of a building that touched the clouds. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Manhattan sprawled beneath them like conquered territory. Wealth that made her poverty feel like drowning. Tell me to stop. His voice came from behind her on the balcony, rough with something that sounded like restraint. Dayo turned. Found him closer than she'd realized, his eyes dark with intention. I can't, she whispered. The kiss wasn't like the one at the gala. That had been possession. This was devastation. His hands framed her face like she was something precious and dangerous at once. Her leather jacket hit the balcony floor. The city disappeared. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. Stay, he said. Just tonight. I'll sleep in the guest room. Just stay. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run. She stayed.
Dayo woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the scent of coffee. For a disoriented moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory returned. The kiss, his request, her insane decision to stay. The guest room. He'd kept his word. She found him in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, cooking breakfast like domesticity was something men who broke spines could do. The contrast made her head spin. You cook? I lived alone for years before the empire consumed me. He slid perfectly plated eggs onto the table. Coffee? The moment shattered when a man in an expensive suit walked in and froze, staring at Dayo like she was a hallucination. Jamin, this is Dayo. Beom's voice carried warning. Dayo, my second in command. You brought someone here? Jamin's shock was almost comical. You never bring anyone here. The tour of his operation felt like descending circles of hell. Money laundering through legitimate businesses, protection networks mapped across the city, territorial agreements written in blood and leverage. Her journalist instinct screamed, this was the story of a lifetime. Don't write about what you see here. Beom's hand settled on her lower back, warm and possessive. Not for the story, for your life. His family estate in Westchester was all old money and older grudges. His sister Min So was a revelation, bright-eyed, genuinely warm, pulling Dayo into an enthusiastic hug. You made my brother smile, she whispered. I didn't know he remembered how. His mother was another story entirely. She swept into the dining room like winter itself, her gaze raking over Dayo with surgical precision. A black woman? The words dripped venom. You bring shame to this family. The air crystallized. Every person at the table went still. She is my guest. Beom's voice dropped to something lethal. You will show respect. His father's threat was more direct. He cornered Beom in the hallway, but Dayo heard every word through the open door. End this. She's a liability that will get you killed. Then came Su-Yan, stunning in the way that expensive surgery and generational wealth created. She appeared at the estate like she still belonged there, her smile cruel and knowing. You're a novelty, she said, finding Dayo alone on the terrace. He collects beautiful, temporary things. I lasted 3 years. How long do you think you'll survive? We're done. Beom's voice cut through the garden. Years ago. Leave. But her eyes promised this wasn't over. The car exploded 2 blocks from Dayo's apartment. She wasn't in it. Beom had insisted on his driver taking her home. The
The vehicle disintegrated in a fireball that shattered windows for 3 blocks. Dayo stood on the sidewalk, shaking, as Beom's security team materialized around her. Then he arrived, moving through the chaos like violence personified. 4 men tried to run. She watched him hunt them down with surgical precision, watched his hands break bones like they were made of kindling, watched the light leave their eyes as he ended them methodically, efficiently, without hesitation. He returned to her, covered in blood that wasn't his. "You killed them." Her voice sounded far away. "I'll kill anyone who tries to hurt you." His hands cupped her face, leaving red smears on her skin. "Everyone, do you understand? Anyone who even thinks about touching you dies screaming." She should have been horrified, should have run. Instead, heat flooded through her, dark and undeniable. "Take me home," she whispered. His smile was terrible and beautiful. "Which home, Dayo?" She knew what he was asking, knew what answer would change everything. "Yours."
Days blurred into nights in his penthouse fortress. His touch became her compass, his voice her gravity. Dayo stopped going back to Brooklyn, stopped pretending this was temporary. Her toothbrush appeared in his bathroom, her laptop on his desk, her leather jacket draped over her chair like a flag planted in conquered territory. She couldn't leave, wouldn't leave. The distinction stopped mattering. Her phone buzzed with her brother's 3rd call that week. She answered on the balcony, Manhattan glittering below like scattered diamonds. "Where are you, Day?" Mom's asking. She's worried. "Working on a story." The lie tasted like ash. "Big one. I'll explain soon." "You sound different." She was different. Girls who kissed mafia bosses for money didn't come back unchanged. She found Beom in his office that night, staring at surveillance footage of the car bombing. His jaw was tight, hands clenched. Controlled fury barely leashed. "You're a target because you matter to me." He didn't look at her. "Every rival knows it now. Every enemy." "Then let me go." Her voice cracked. "Let me disappear back into my life." "I can't." He stood abruptly, crossing to her with that predatory grace. "I've tried. Every rational thought tells me to send you away, keep you safe. But I can't let you go." His hands framed her face. "You are the only thing I've ever wanted to protect." "I'm falling in love with a killer." The confession escaped like a wound opening. "A man who breaks people for a living. What does that make me?" "I know." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "I'm sorry." "I'm not." Tears burned her eyes. "That's what terrifies me. I'm not sorry at all." Their first night together was nothing like the desperate chemistry on the balcony. This was soul deep. Devastating. He mapped her scars, the rope burn on her wrist from a childhood accident, the surgical mark from an appendectomy. She traced his, bullet wounds, knife cuts, the permanent damage violence leaves behind. "My father left when I was 11, she whispered in the dark. "Just walked out one morning, never looked back. My mom worked 3 jobs. I learned early that people leave, that being strong means being alone. My first love was murdered when I was 22. His voice was rough. Rival organization. They killed her to hurt me. It worked. I vowed never to care about anyone again. How's that working out?" His laugh was broken. Terribly. Later, tangled in sheets that cost more than her rent, he pulled her against his chest. "Stay with me. Not for a night, not for a week. Stay. Your world will kill me eventually. My world will kill anyone who tries to touch you." His arms tightened around her. "I'll burn this entire city down first." She believed him. That was the terrifying part. Across the city, in a luxury apartment overlooking Central Park, Su Yen spread fabricated documents across her dining table, photos of Dayo meeting with sources, manipulated to look like clandestine exchanges, financial records showing transfers that didn't exist, communication logs crafted to suggest betrayal. She picked up her phone, dialing Beom's ambition lieutenant. "Taehan, I have something you need to see." On her laptop screen, the damning evidence glowed. Photos, messages, proof of a spy in their midst. "She's using him," Su Yen said softly, "gathering information, playing him like a fool. He'll never believe it." "He will?" Her smile was sharp enough to cut. "Because the evidence doesn't lie, and Beom Seok trusts nothing more than proof." The trap was set. Now they just had to wait for it to spring. Taehyun arrived at dawn with a tablet and an expression like a funeral. Beom was still in bed, Dayo wrapped in his arms, when the urgent knock shattered their peace. "Sir, we have a problem." The photos loaded like bullets chambering. Dayo meeting with men in dark corners, financial transfers to offshore accounts, encrypted messages discussing information exchanges and payment for services rendered. "Explain this." Beom's voice was ice wrapped around a blade. Dayo's blood went cold. "Those are my journalistic sources. That's how investigative work. Convenient." He stood, pulling on clothes with mechanical precision. "You've had access to everything for weeks. Every meeting, every operation, every weakness. I would never." "Explain the money then." Taehyun's voice was almost sympathetic. 15 transfers, all after nights you spent here. "I trusted you." Beom's hands shook, the only visible crack in his control. "I let you in. I thought you were different." "I am different. I love you." "Love?" His laugh was sharp enough to draw blood. "You don't even know what that word means in my world. Love is weakness. Love is the knife they use to gut you." He was seeing something else, someone else. His first love's death written across Dayo's face. "I can't kill you." His voice dropped to something hollow. "But I can't trust you." He turned to his security. "Lock her in the penthouse. Maximum protocols. No phone, no computer, no contact. Phone, please." "For your protection," he said, already walking away. "And mine." The penthouse became a gilded cage. Armed guards on every exit. Windows that didn't open. Her phone confiscated, laptop gone. Alone with nothing but rage and fear and the crushing weight of false accusations. Dayo refused to break. Instead, she remembered every detail of those fabricated documents. The timestamps that didn't align, the financial routing that made no sense, the encryption style that wasn't hers. She found his backup tablet in a drawer. He'd forgotten he'd showed her the passcode weeks ago. Downloaded the evidence files. Started digging. Digital fingerprints. Soo-yeon's IP address buried in the metadata. Communications between her and Taehyun. And worse, plans for tonight. A summit. A coup. An assassination. They were going to kill Beom. Frame Dayo. Seize everything. She had to warn him, but she was locked in 50 floors above the city with no way out. Unless the security system ran on the same network as everything else. Dayo had spent weeks watching him work, learning his passcodes, understanding his protocols. She'd been gathering information, just not the kind they accused her of. Her fingers flew across the tablet, bypassing cameras, unlocking doors, creating a 30-second window in the security rotation. The climb down the building's exterior was suicide. Maintenance ladder, 50 floors of vertical terror, wind tearing at her clothes. But Dayo had learned something in Beom's world. Sometimes you survive by refusing to calculate the odds. The garage, his motorcycle collection. She chose the fastest one, her hands remembering the lessons he'd given her on lazy Sunday mornings that felt like a lifetime ago. The engine roared to life. Guards shouted. She didn't stop. Manhattan blurred past at lethal speeds. The summit location burned in her mind. High-rise hotel, penthouse conference room, where Beom would be surrounded by allies who'd become executioners. She had to reach him, had to make him listen, had to save the man who thought she'd betrayed him. The bike screamed through red lights like a bullet seeking its target.
The 52nd floor conference room was all glass and steel, Manhattan sprawling below like a kingdom waiting to be claimed. Beom stood at the head of the table, surrounded by 20 men who ran the city's underworld with him. Allies, brothers, or so he thought. "The expansion into Queens is non-negotiable," he was saying, when Taehyun's phone buzzed. The signal. "Actually," Taehyun stood, his smile apologetic and terrible, "everything is negotiable now." 8 men at the table drew weapons simultaneously. The doors burst open. More armed men flooded in, guns trained on Beom and the handful of loyalists who looked as betrayed as he felt. Soo-yeon emerged from behind the tactical team like a queen claiming her throne. Still beautiful, still cruel, wearing victory like expensive perfume. "You always were too sentimental," she said, heels clicking across marble. "Love made you weak, Beom. I tried to warn you." "This was you." His voice was deadly calm, even with 5 guns pointed at his chest. The evidence, the setup. The journalist was convenient, so earnest, so desperate to prove herself. Soo-yeon's laugh was champagne and poison. "Did you really think a girl like that could love a monster like you?" She was gathering intel from day one. Something in his chest cracked. Not his heart. That had turned to ice the moment he saw those photos. But something deeper. The last piece of him that had dared to hope.
You should have stayed with me, Soo-yeon continued. We could have ruled together. I'd rather die. That can be arranged. The firefight erupted like a symphony of violence. Beom moved with lethal precision, taking down 2 men before they could fire. His remaining loyalists returned fire. Glass shattered, bodies fell, but there were too many traitors, too many guns. He was going to die here. Maybe that was fitting. The man who'd broken his own rule. Never love anything you can't afford to lose, paying the ultimate price. Then the conference room doors exploded inward. A motorcycle, his Ducati, he recognized it through the chaos, crashed through security, skidding across marble in a shower of sparks. The rider wore no helmet, natural hair whipping wild, leather jacket torn from the climb. Dayo. Run! Beom's voice cracked with terror and fury. Get out! She didn't run. She never ran. That's what he loved about her. That's what was going to get her killed. Her eyes swept the room with journalist precision, cataloging exits and angles and threats. Then she saw it. Tae-yeon behind Beom, gun rising toward his exposed back while he fought 3 men in front. Time crystallized. Beom watched her face change, watched calculation become certainty, become sacrifice. No! The word ripped from him. Dayo, no! She ran, not away from the danger, toward it, toward him, always toward him. The room seemed to hold its breath. Soo-yeon's scream of rage, Tae-yeon's finger on the trigger, Beom twisting, too slow, always too slow, and Tae-yo running like she could outrace bullets, throwing herself between them with reckless, devastating love.
The bullet entered just below her collarbone. Dayo felt the impact before the pain, a punch that drove the air from her lungs, then fire, then falling. Beom caught her before she hit the ground, his arms steel and terror wrapped around her body. Blood spread across her chest in a bloom of dark crimson, soaking into her leather jacket. No! His voice shattered. No, no, no. Her gasp was wet, struggling. The conference room spun above her in fragments of glass and smoke. Stay with me. He pressed his hand against the wound, trying to hold her together through sheer will. Don't you dare leave me. Do you hear me? Don't you dare. Then he laid her down with a gentleness that belonged to someone else, someone who wasn't about to become a nightmare made flesh. Beom stood. The man who rose was the monster his enemies whispered about, the predator his father had tried to forge, violence incarnate. He moved through the remaining traitors like death personified, methodical, efficient, brutal beyond mercy. Bodies fell, bones broke, screams echoed off glass walls. Tae-hun tried to run. Beom caught him by the throat, lifting him off the ground with one hand. You used her. Each word was carved from ice. You framed her. You made me doubt her. Please. The pleading died with him, slowly, agonizingly, a lesson written in broken bones and terror. Soo-yeon fled toward the emergency stairs. He hunted her through the building like prey that had forgotten what teeth felt like. Found her on the 48th floor, trapped, beautiful face twisted with fear. We could have... She is what real love looks like. He closed the distance between them. You never were. Her death was quick, efficient, final. He returned to the conference room covered in blood that wasn't his. Dayo lay where he'd left her, chest barely rising, her hand reaching for him even in unconsciousness. You are the only thing I ever wanted to protect. He collapsed beside her, pulling her into his arms. And I failed. I failed you. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused, fading, but seeing him. You didn't fail. Blood flecked her lips. I chose this. I chose you. Why? His voice broke completely. Why would you do this? Because I love you. Each word cost her. Because walking away would have killed me slower. The ambulance, the surgery. 8 hours of pacing hospital corridors with her blood drying on his hands, and his world reduced to the rhythm of machines keeping her alive. When Dayo finally woke, she found him asleep in the chair beside her bed, his hand wrapped around hers like he could anchor her to life through touch alone. You took a bullet for me. His voice was raw when he felt her stir. I'd take 100 more. I love you. Tears cut tracks through the dried blood on his face. It terrifies me. Everyone I love dies. Everyone.
and be terrified with me." She squeezed his hand weakly. "We'll figure it out together. You are the only thing I ever wanted to protect." He brought her hand to his lips. "Let me, for the rest of our lives, let me protect you, love you, keep you safe. Please. Yes. The simplest word, the most complicated promise. Yes. Yes."
The Plaza Hotel hadn't changed in 3 years. Same gilded ballroom, same champagne fountains, same Manhattan elite pretending their money made them immortal. But Dayo Equieme had changed everything. She stood at the entrance in a designer gown that cost more than her old rent, her leather jacket draped over one arm like a flag she'd never surrender. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant updo, and the bullet scar on her chest was visible above the neckline. She never hid it. Beside her, Beom Seok looked like violence wrapped in a tuxedo, his mandala tattoo displayed proudly. His hand rested on the small of her back with casual possession that made several onlookers glance away. They belonged here now, not as outsiders, as conquerors. "That's Dayo Equieme," someone whispered, Pulitzer Prize winner. Her investigative platform brought down 3 senators last year. And Beom Seok reformed his entire organization, all legitimate businesses now. Mostly legitimate. Beom was still dangerous when he needed to be. The difference was, now he chose restraint, strategy over violence, partnership over possession. Their empire was built on her truth and his power, a combination that made the corrupt tremble. "Mrs. Han just texted," Beom murmured against her ear. "The twins are asleep. Amara fought bedtime. Jihye went down easy." 18-month-old twins, Amara with her mother's defiant courage, Jihye with her father's calculated patience, Korean-Nigerian perfection that made his mother weep with grudge and acceptance, and his sister spoil them rotten. "They have your courage," he'd said that morning, watching Amara climb furniture she had no business climbing. "And your protectiveness," Dayo had laughed, watching Jihye guard her sister's back. Across the ballroom, Dayo spotted a young woman in a leather jacket, looking terrified and out of place, clutching an invitation like a lifeline. "Should we dare her to kiss someone?" Beom's voice held dark amusement. "We were insane." Dayo turned in his arms, seeing her own wild history reflected in his eyes. "Best 3 seconds of my life." "Mine too." They moved to the dance floor as the orchestra began. His hand slid into her hair, that familiar possessive gesture that still made her breath catch. Her hand settled over his heart, feeling the steady rhythm beneath the mandala tattoo. "The kiss was supposed to last 3 seconds, she murmured against his chest. It lasted forever. His arms tightened around her. "Worth it?" She tilted her head back to meet his eyes. "Every bullet, every scar, every terrifying second, every single one." He kissed her softly. "I'd live through all of it again, die through it again, anything to end up here, with you." They left the gala early. Their daughters were waiting. Their life, dangerous, unconventional, entirely theirs, was waiting. In the car, Dayo traced the scar on her chest through the fabric of her gown. Beom caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. "No regrets?" he asked. "Not one." She'd walked into his trap that night, hand against his chest, taking a dare she couldn't afford, a 3-second kiss that was supposed to solve her problems and disappear into memory. Instead, she'd found her freedom there, found herself, found a love that refused to be contained by danger or prejudice or impossibility. The consequences had lasted forever. And given the choice, standing in that ballroom again, watching him across the room, hearing the dare that would change everything, she'd take it again. Every single time.